Morning, everyone. This is Rob with the Embark Behavioral Health. Just getting out of the pool this morning. It's a little bit cool and breezy here. Had a lot of time to think while I was swimming my laps this morning, and just sitting in my truck on my way into the office, and really thinking about the experience of joy. And I talk about joy, that is certainly the end game for us at Embark Behavioral Health, that we want to bring families the capacity to experience joy, and not only families, but all the staff and employees that work for us. And joy is the product of a shared experience, but joy comes from this ability to find meaning in suffering. If you think about that relationship, meaning in suffering, when you can find that purposeful meaning in suffering in life, and that develops the capacity to experience joy being different than happiness. In my own life, I'm experiencing that keenly, and just wanted to share with you guys that we have some newly acquainted friends of ours, and I'm so privileged to do what I do for a living and be able to have some clinical expertise, and more importantly, have a what we would call an integrated life when it comes to therapy and treating families and our own personal development. And these personal friends of ours who are new said to my wife, "I heard what your husband does for a living, and would you mind us talking to you?" And so I spent some time with them the other evening, and in the midst of them describing them taking a child in who is related to them, but with a significant amount of developmental trauma, and with well-intentioned, thinking that love would be enough. This child is experiencing a tremendous amount, now that they're into their late adolescence, experiencing a tremendous amount of emotional dysregulation, behavioral dysregulation, self-sabotage, a profound sense of shame. And to sit with these people and to begin to make sense of it for them. And in the midst of making sense, I always have to remember that, and I mentioned this last vlog, that empathy has to become before strategy. And for me to be able to sit there and empathize and be able to share what that experience must be like for them, absolutely created this experience of acceptance. And by the time our time together was over, tears had flown, had come down, and this ability to connect just really resonated throughout our experience. And I was overcome in the midst of these people suffering, overcome with this experience of joy, that I get to do what I do for a living and in my own personal life, and be able to connect in a way that these folks hadn't gotten a chance to. And this was after years, and I'm sure all of us have heard the same story, years of, why hasn't a therapist told us this? We've been to therapist after therapist, and nobody's explained it this way. Understanding that early developmental trauma is now creating experiences of self-sabotage and shame. And this child that they took in this late adolescence has average to above IQ, and that's what tends to be a little bit deceptive, and we get into this cognitive drift. So it's important for us, all of us, including me, to remember empathy before strategy. And in that, when we empathize and we connect, that's that moment of finding some experience where there's meaning in suffering. I get to experience it. I just got to experience it. What a privileged life we get to lead. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.